So let's start at the beginning. What first drew you into your area of practice, criminal defense?
So I was one of those people in law school, and I bet you there's a lot of us out there who essentially, when first went in, we basically said, well, we're really curious about the law. There's so much we want to learn, but oh my God, I have no interest in defending criminals and defending, quote unquote, bad people. And after taking a few classes, not only in criminal law, but later on criminal procedure and white collar offenses, I was a convert. Not only because I found the material and the law interesting and engaging, but in spite of myself, because I kind of tend to be more of an introvert type of person, I found myself much more engaged. I'm much more emotionally connecting to the stories of people who had been accused of crimes. So the interest organically started there. And then upon graduation, there's always the dual path. Are we going to be a prosecutor? Or are we going to be a defense attorney? So back in Miami, which is where I'm originally from and where I went to law school and all that good stuff, I had interviews with the public defender's office and with the state attorney's office of Miami-Dade County. And as it just so happens, I go to the interviews. They both went well, but it just so happened that the state attorney's office had just finished their hiring quota for the season. And I would have to wait some time in order to be able to join in and, obviously, get an offer, all that good stuff. And it turned out that the public defender's office was hiring quickly. And for the broke law student that I was at the time, they were actually offering a little more money. And that kind of just sent me in that direction. And I have not looked back.
Got it. It's actually a very similar origin story to my own. It sort of was a matter of happenstance right now. Something that's completely not out of your control, but it's something that you don't have a whole lot of influence in that ended up putting me in that path as well. So I relate
Yeah,
to you.
I knew it was very important. Like when I first started out, I knew this was going to be a very important choice. And I jokingly say that, that had I known that certain other practices, make so much more money that I would probably second guessed it. But the truth is that I love what I do and it keeps me engaged. And I think that's one of the reasons that I'm one of the few happy lawyers that I know. So there you go.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I certainly like having an area of practice that I don't get bored talking about at parties.
Absolutely. And our stories are the best.
They're the best. Absolutely
Yeah.
the best. They absolutely. Excellent. So let me ask you this. Every defense attorney that I've ever met has at least one case that really sticks with them. And for you, I'm asking, is there a particular case, whether it's a win or a loss or just a turning point, something that had a lasting impact on how you practice law today?
There've been actually a few of them, but I will tell you that the one for me that really just made me double down on not only knowing that I was doing the right thing for myself, but also for citizenship, for the community. I've had a case, was one of my final cases before actually leaving the public defender's office, in which I was actually defending a truly innocent client. And, let's be honest with each other. As criminal defense attorneys, the truly innocent client is no, it's a rare gem. Let's put it that way. But it's also the most pressure-filled case because the stakes are so high. And as it turned out, the client had been charged with a firearm offense. There was a minimum mandatory a penalty involved, and the victim in the case was an influential person in their neighborhood. He was somebody who carried some weight, and he had a long-standing grudge against my client. And because of that, the state attorney's office kind of found themselves between a rock and a hard place. The alleged victim was being very, very difficult regarding any sort of resolution that would involve some kind of diversion or anything like that. So we find ourselves essentially going to trial. And again, the stakes were very high because we have an actual innocent man's future in the balance. So my trial partner and I, we went in there and we essentially told the client, everything. We're like, listen, this is what you're facing. This is what you're risking. All that good stuff. Client, to his credit, God bless him. He stood firm. We went to trial. And I will tell you that when that jury came back, and they came back pretty quickly. And when that jury came back before anything happened, I literally could feel the sweat running down my back and my heart is pounding. The client is next to me. I could he was literally trembling. And
Mhm.
when that clerk read out the verdict of not guilty, I tell you that it felt it literally felt like 20 tons had been lifted off my shoulder. My client starts crying. Everybody starts crying. I swear to you, even the prosecutor felt like he was about to cry. So it was one of those things that case just, my God, it was probably the most stressful case I've been in. And, take a bit of a long answer to your question. That's the one that kind of just really hit home for me.
How long has it been since that one?
Oh my gosh. That case has been a while. That was back in, my goodness, I want to say it was back in 2009. Believe it or
Okay.
not.
Yeah, so 26 years.
Been a while.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
been a while. And there certainly have been other cases, again, have been impactful, influential, some in a good way, some in a bad way. But for some reason, that one always sticks out to me.
Well, when the question is about a case that has a lasting impact, it those that does tend to focus in on the earlier part of one's career because you look at
Yes.
retrospect, right? And so it's hard to say that a case you had 2 years ago is having a lasting impact compared to a case that is influential from the beginning of your career. So it makes perfect sense.
Of course, of course. And now, I've kind of been, so I initially, when I first began my career, I was doing state work.
Mhm.
And then I eventually left the state, I'm sorry, the public defender's office. I went into private practice. And then once I went into private practice, it was a small boutique. As much as I hate that word, it was a small boutique firm again, in Florida. And at that point, I started becoming more involved in federal as well. And as time went by, I've now narrowed my practice to focus specifically on federal. And that comes with a whole bunch of stories on its own and, some greater than others. I'm happy to relay them at some time, whether it's now or in the future, but there's something that, you get a nice kick in the teeth from time to time.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I am curious. I'm going to go into it right now out of curiosity because I have a federal practice. I really dislike being in federal court. I think that I don't, and this could be a matter of culture for my courthouse, but I'm guessing this is probably true throughout the federal system. They take themselves so damn seriously.
Oh man, I gotta tell you, that is the biggest. So the thing that I like about this, the thing that I liked and also drove me crazy about state practice is that literally almost anything could happen. You a much more freewheeling is not the right word, but it's a more kind of like relaxed environment. It's a little bit more congenial and approachable. And that definitely is not par for the course with the federal system. It's like you say, there's a certain there's a certain formality and a certain arrogance, maybe, perhaps to a degree. And I think that's across the federal system. And unfortunately, I think that also comes from the culture of the government, of the prosecution side, because unlike the state side, where the defense, I think, has much more of an opportunity to not only be more creative with defenses, but also, go to trial more often because the stakes are, of course, high. But at the federal level, unfortunately, the government has, the odds are very much in their favor and they know it. And I think that's part of the reason that we have that dynamic going on.
Yeah. Although, and interestingly, in Arizona,
Mhm.
we tend to get much better outcomes in federal court than in state court because in Arizona we have mandatory sentencing.
Sure.
So the power lies completely with the prosecution. The way they choose to charge, whether they choose to charge, it defines the case. Whereas in federal court, although we got the guidelines because they're advisory, you could always go for broke and try to get probation at the end of a trial. Um,
Yes.
And so,
What? I got to tell you, I think it might depend on the district, because I will tell you that usually I see a lot of the trial tax being applied in federal cases, unless you've got a really strong, or very much or the government has a borderline case, or you're able to lay out some great, not only mitigation, but perhaps some good facts at trial, and you've got a good judge, because the judge in the federal case is going to be paramount.
sure, sure.
Happen to get a good judge, which, by the way, and there are quite a few of them out there. I don't want to make it seem like that's not the case, especially in my old stomping ground, the Southern District of Florida. There are some terrific judges that I would try a case in front of and feel confident that they would still give my client a fair shake. And again, of course, you also have the opposite. And once you have, one, and I'm dealing with a few here in the District of Colorado right now. And that's where you really got to be very careful about what you choose and what the client wants to do and how you advise them. But
Absolutely. No, everything you said is 100% accurate. So, moving on to my next area, running your own practice isn't just about the law, it's about leadership, business, resilience. And so, looking back on your time leading your own firm, your own practice, what's the most important lesson you've learned as an owner that you did not expect going in? You can take it.
oof, okay.
Good question. I know it's a big question, so take your time.
I think the first thing I learned is that I do not love the administrative part of the practice. I know very, very few lawyers who do. But it's one of those things that you just got to do as part of your own business, part of your own practice. I hate it, but I do it. And I think that the thing I wasn't prepared for, although of course in the back of your head that starting your own practice means that there's no consistent paycheck, and I'm going to get paid this at this time with this frequency and these benefits. Certainly, you have to build tolerance for the unexpected, because and I'm not for and at least speaking from my experience in criminal practice, it tends to be very cyclical. There are
Hmm.
times that the phone does not stop ringing, that everybody wants everything now, yesterday, and oh my God, my husband got arrested yesterday. Can you be at an arraignment tomorrow? Can you be at a bond hearing tomorrow? And everything comes in. And then you have moments that all of a sudden things are really quiet. And those are the panic moments. And I've taken to understand that instead of considering those as panic moments, I've turned them into moments where I focus on either expanding my learning or my experience, or reaching out for networking opportunities, like, doing podcasts like these, or other events when they come down the pipeline, or better yet, taking the time to kind of give myself a mental and physical break,
Hmm.
because a cycle will come again. You have to kind of be confident that that's going to happen. And, knock on wood, or knock on wood, as they say, it's been that way. So
Yeah,
the cycle was what was my biggest lesson, and how to cope with it.
sure. And I'm sure until you learned how to cope with it, it was very stressful because I've had that experience. It-
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't have it all 100. I don't have it 100% down. There are still moments that I'm like, oh my God, wait, I just finished this big case. What's the next one coming down the pipeline?
yeah.
And again, you kind of have to talk yourself down from that.
What is the structure of your firm? Is it just you? Do you have any staff, any associates?
My staff, I do not have any associates, because, and I purposely, I'll tell you, Joel, I purposely kept it that way,
Hmm.
because thankfully I'm at a point in my career where I am, again, very thankfully able to choose the cases I work on. So I don't take every single case that comes through the door. Which is one of the reasons, again, that I kind of, again, wanted to limit myself to the federal practice. And I've kind of reached a great balance between work and personal fulfillment. And keeping that meant that I wanted to keep things simple. And I'm also a grade A control freak, which is not the greatest thing to be. And I'm working on it. I swear I'm working on it. But it's also kind of, it kind of scratches that itch of me being able, kind of like, be able to do see control everything. I do have a virtual assistant. The virtual assistant is great. does everything I need for what I need, but everything else I control, and I'm very happy with that arrangement.
Where is your virtual assistant based?
Here in Denver.
Oh, okay. So they're stateside. Cool.
Yeah, yeah, they're local, and I have an office I have an office and a virtual office where from day to day they can open my mail and things like that. If I need to meet with someone, I can head out and meet with them there personally. So it works out great for somebody who's trying to keep things not only lean but also again simple and kind of like in control for my purposes.
Right. I have two follow-ups to that. The first one is what kinds of things do you have your virtual assistant do for you? Because I'm breaking in a virtual assistant right now, so I'm just curious what other people do with their virtual assistant.
Truly, for the moment, it's just answering calls, passing calls over, taking messages, sending me like updates on the calendar. Very simple, very clean. So nothing more than that.
Do you have them manage your inbox or email?
Do I have a what?
Do you have
For
them
me?
do you have them manage your email?
No. Email, no. What usually happens is if I do get correspondence, they'll open it for me, they'll scan it and send it to my email. So, but everything usually just comes in rather quickly and it's not a big deal.
Cool, cool, cool. My next question is about practical advice for the next generation or the upcoming generation. So the question is this: if you could sit down with your younger self or a new lawyer
Mm.
just starting out in criminal defense, what's one piece of practical advice that you would give them to make their journey smoother?
Choose your mentors wisely.
Ooh.
Try every case you can.
Mhm.
Obviously within, keeping the client's best
Interesting.
interests in keep
Mhm.
right every case you can, get as much experience as you can, surround yourself with lawyers who are smarter than you, be around people who try cases, and when you find someone in the community who has that criteria, you know, try to follow them, try to get to know them. Again, learn as much as you possibly can. And if you feel comfortable, you are in the wrong room. Get out of that room, get to the next room where you feel like the newbie, where you feel like like you don't know a damn thing, and keep doing that because that's what's going to make you better.
Excellent advice. Question. Want to shout
Mhm.
out one of your mentors? Is there someone in particular who you would credit with having an undue influence on that makes it sound negative, but like a
No,
big
no, no. Oh, you're absolutely right. I gotta say, my one of my mentors is he's actually retired, and he's actually not only a mentor, but he turned into a dear, dear friend. His name is Harry Solomon or Harold Solomon. He was in a law practicing, very well respected attorney down South Florida. He was. I met him when I tried a federal case. I had the lead defendant. He had a co-defendant. We tried that case. It was, I believe, let me see. We were five lawyers in that case, believe it or not. And just by working together, I got to know these terrific attorneys because they all were just terrific attorneys. We all worked very well together. But he in particular was not only, he had such great judgment. He had been at this for a long time. We just clicked together. And he is somebody who I still call and I say, I'm bringing him out of retirement every so often. And I still call him today for advice and perspective. So
very
he
nice.
gets my
Very nice. Excellent. Um, how on average, how often would you say you try cases or how many trials do you have in federal court a year on average?
oh my gosh. Wait, I'm gonna now be very candid with you. Way too little. I have not tried a case in several years. Not because again, not from lack of desire, but because either the evidence just doesn't really allow it, or because we've been able to reach good results otherwise. Usually we have circumstances where, and especially where you have clients who are, who are facing extended sentences, even with your good judges or your more lenient judges. Sometimes you get some fantastic mitigation and you have to weigh the pros and cons. And yeah, to answer your question, not nearly enough as I'd like to.
Sure.
And I will tell you that I think in the federal system, sadly, we have become a system of pleas. and we are no longer a system of trials.
Mhm.
That's something that I would love to see change, and gonna take gonna take a lot of amending on on the cultural side, on the system in general, to hopefully make that happen. But I really do think it's a loss.
Sure. No, and it's I think that I was more curious to see if your experience is comparable to mine here in my district, because it just that's the way it works in federal court. Although the guidelines are guidelines, the reality is that the cases are better investigated in federal court than they are in state court. And
Oh yeah,
and um and it's
and it's a very big deal. And again, guidelines, again, advisory and all that good stuff. But even though that is the case, I have encountered, and obviously I'm not going to name any names, but I have encountered at least one or two judges in my lifetime that they are guideline people. They're old school judges who've been on the bench for a long time,
back when the
and
party, yeah.
present them with the most terrific mitigation and the best circumstances. And a lot of the times, gosh darn it, that's where you're going to end up.
Mhm.
And I've had quite a few cases in front of this individual, and it's one of those things where, again, you kind of have to know your judge. And then, knowing your judge, you look at the evidence, you see what the government is doing. You use your investigators as best you can, which I do. I use my investigators, my mitigation specialists as often as I can, because part of building and knowing your defense is, knowing everything inside out. And you kind of have to then call the balls and strikes
Mhm.
and kind of predict. I read a post of yours on LinkedIn, that was spot on. Actually, it's it was a post referencing how your attorney, how an experienced attorney can take a case, look at everything, and pretty much predict where it's going to end up. And I find that to be very true.
Yeah. Yeah, every once in a while you get an outlier or an exception to the rule, and it shakes your resolve a little bit and makes you wonder, what did I miss? And oftentimes it's just a quirk that you could have never really predicted. But yeah,
Absolutely.
generally, I think once you're in the game long enough, you have a pretty good sense of where cases are at least supposed to end, with whatever meaning we put into the word supposed to. But
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly. I think we're very good at predicting it, I have to say. I've been, again, knock on wood, I've been pretty spot on with it, maybe a couple of months of most of my predictions. So, and the one time, and I'll tell you, this is like the opposite of the feel good story that I started with at the beginning of our conversation.
Mhm.
I had a case here in a report that I had I thought I had some really great mitigation. The client had a very good explanation for the offense and what happened. And for the first time in my career, I had a judge actually vary upward from the guidelines.
Wow.
And it was a gut kicker.
Yeah.
It had never happened to me before. I did not predict it happening, because truly I didn't see anything in this case that that might have triggered that. But the judge very clearly did not like the case, did not like the client's history and things like that. Needless to say, the outcome is being appealed. I'm not particularly optimistic that the appeal is going to go anywhere, but it was the first time it happened. I think it's one of those things that you just have to, roll with the punches. But yeah, that was a tough one.
Oh, sure. And the client, oh, I can only imagine. I mean, I've been in situations like that too, where you get an outcome that's like, well, wait, where did that come from? That is
Oh
negative.
yeah.
It's
Oh,
painful.
yeah, and I will tell you that to his credit, because I developed a very good bond with the client, and I think that the client, one of the things that he was always very, I think, cognizant of, which I hope my clients are cognizant of, is that, and I tell them, the only promise I can ever make you as a lawyer is that I'm going to do everything I can within my power to get you the best result. I can never guarantee you a result. No ethical attorney can. I can give you some predictions as to what I think is going to happen. And even though my client was very, of course, disappointed in the outcome, I will say that he was still thankful, grateful. He acknowledged, he said, listen, he goes, I think you did everything that you needed to do. I think, I'm very happy with your work. I don't understand what happened. So yeah, I'm going to appeal, but
Yeah.
thank you for everything you did. And that, if nothing else, I kind of took some sting off.
Oh, that speaks to the integrity with which you conduct your practice and the integrity with which you relate to your clients, the fact that you communicate to them. You had developed sufficient trust with them so that they knew that that outcome was not a reflection on your work. They knew where to put their disappointment, and it wasn't with you. So I commend you for that.
And yeah, I'm grateful for that because that doesn't always, obviously that doesn't always happen. People are human and that's just the way it is. I mean, we're lawyers, we're not, we're not fortune tellers. We can't guarantee things. And I think anything in any profession, whether it's law, whether it's medicine, whatnot, I think there certainly is a distinction and a recognition from the client as to when they see that that the professional has done everything they could and has battled for them in their best interest. So I think every defense attorney has that story.
For sure. Because you have now focused your practice on federal practice, you are differently situated in that you could, in theory, practice in any district court in the country. Are you open for business for cases outside of the District of Colorado?
Absolutely. My motto is have retainer, will travel. And I have actually had the pleasure of litigating cases not only in the Southern District of Florida, but also in the Southern District of New York, in the Western District of Missouri, and of course here in Colorado. So I have been able to thankfully visit other districts as well. So that's always an adventure.
Well, that's good for me to know because I was just looking at the types of work that you list on your website. And one thing that I know I never touch is recovery of seized assets and forfeiture. Not in. So if someone calls me looking to help with a forfeiture proceeding, I finally have someone else I have one guy that I send them all to, but he's pretty busy. And so I'm glad to have someone else I can send those referrals to.
Thank you so much. And I will tell you that so primarily, and addressing forfeitures, that's actually really interesting because I'm actually in the process of working on a webinar for a professional group here in Colorado on asset seizure and forfeiture at the federal level. And I have to tell you that it is one of the most confusing, disorganized specialties out there because agencies, they all have their different procedures, and then some rules overlap, others don't. And even because I mean, forfeitures are not, I don't do those every day. I've had the opportunity to do them, to do quite a few of them over my time. But it's one of those things that you very much need to always kind of like dive in and tread carefully because deadlines, once they are missed in that practice or in that specialty, you are pretty much without a resolution or you're screwed. To put it professional, I think that's the legal term. You're screwed.
Screwed. You're SOL. Yeah. But I'm really glad to have met you because now I have someone else I can send that kind of work to.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm gonna end on somewhat of an improvised note. What do you like to do with yourself when you're not kicking butt as a criminal defense attorney? What feeds you? What fills you up outside of the work?
Okay, well, that's actually an easy answer because it's the reason I moved to Colorado in the first place.
Okay.
I am a big outdoors nature person. I love hiking. I love skiing. I love anything that gets me out there and it's been away from people, but that's, that's a little bit facetious because I do like working with people to an extent, but I love the silence of the outdoors. I love the peace of the outdoors. And I legitimately believe that it's what keeps me sane and keeps me centered in my life.
Well, Adriana, those were my questions. So thank you so much.
Take care.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed this conversation, please subscribe to the channel for more spotlights featuring attorneys sharing their journeys, lessons, and stories from the front lines of the law. See you in the next one.